morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to the Regeneration 2030, the session on Bhutan. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Tshoki Zangmo, and I was working as a researcher at the Center for Bhutan Studies, but now I've joined UNDP country office as the head of exploration for the newly established Accelerator lab. I will be the moderator for the session today. After the first round of presentations from each speaker, we'll have a Q&A session towards the end. The first presentation is on gross national happiness. I will be speaking on this topic along with Dr. Sabina Alkire, who directs the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative, a research center within the Oxford Department of International Development, University of Oxford. She's most famous for her multidimensional poverty index measurement, and her research interests and publications include welfare economics, Amartya Sen's capability approach, and human development. She holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Economics from the University of Oxford. With this, we shall begin our presentation on gross national happiness. Well, back in 2011, the UN called out on nations to give more importance to happiness and well-being in determining how to achieve and measure social and economic development. But what is happiness? What is well-being? More importantly, how does it relate to public policy, to private sector? Well, views differ. The World Happiness Report, the annual publication of the solutions, which is produced by the UN Solutions Network, ranks countries by a single question on quality of life. The survey invites participants to rate their life quality on a single indicator of life satisfaction. There has also been an aggressive follow-up by the OECD to the 2007 Commission on Measurement of Economic Performance and Social Progress, resulting in 2 reports being released covering multiple dimensions of well-being, as opposed to the World Happiness Report, which depends on a single indicator. But let us now look at a different example, where happiness is actually a national priority. Happiness is viewed as multidimensional. It considers all sentient beings, and it's not only guides policies and programs, but also shapes business ethics. That is the country of Bhutan. Development in our country has been guided by the philosophy of gross national happiness, which emphasizes societal value, societal well-being as the ultimate end of governance. And the essence of GNH can actually be traced back to Bhutan's legal code of 1729, which actually states that if the government cannot create happiness for its people, then there is no purpose for the government to exist. However, it is our fourth king, Drugyalpo, King Jigme Singye Wangchuk, who actually coined the term for the first time back in 1970s. Our constitution also clearly states that the state shall strive to promote conditions of GNH. The concept places the people at the center of all development efforts, and it recognizes that an individual has various needs, material, spiritual, and emotional needs. It asserts that progress should be viewed holistically, and therefore happiness and well-being as such is multidimensional in nature. This multidimensional aspect or character of the concept lends itself to many priorities, but actually has been subsumed under 9 thematic domains for steering the process of change. Domains include psychological well-being, work-life balance, health, governance, culture, environment, living standards, and community relationships. And these domains, they give very tangible expressions to the central tenets of cross-national happiness. The domains represent, each of these domains represent components of well-being of the Bhutanese people. And the term well-being here refers to fulfilling conditions of a good life as per the values and principles laid down by the concept of GNH. Now, since the early 2000s, Bhutan has created further momentum by developing a GNH index for assessing progress in the country. And with this, may I now invite Sabina to shed some light on this topic. Sabina, are you there?
Thank you so much, Tshoki. And this GNH index that she spoke of is the work of the Center for Bhutan Studies, led by Dashokama Ura, who spoke yesterday. And Tshoki herself is really one of the technical creators of the index. Next slide. What it does is it takes those 9 equally weighted domains and it measures 2 to 4 indicators within each one. Next slide. And the indicators show different aspects of well-being. For example, psychological well-being is happiness, but also positive, negative affect and spirituality. Health includes mental health. Education, yes, schooling, but also legends and plants. Time use includes sleep. Cultural diversity, time and festivals, but also the considerate, courteous etiquette. And community vitality includes volunteering and giving donations of time and money, as well as the living standards of income or of housing. So next slide. The 9 domains overall look at different aspects of a person's life. So how do we measure them? First, for each of the 33 indicators, there is a sufficiency threshold that says, what does a person need to enjoy the conditions of happiness? For example, 8 hours sleep or a certain number of years of education. Next slide. And then each person in the survey, and this is a specific survey which has all 33 indicators and 124 variables, each person is coded as whether or not they have sufficiency, the dark box, or lack it, the white box. So for example, in this slide, next, she enjoys sufficiency in 84% of the domains, the weighted domains. So that's her sufficiency score. Next slide. Then the Society of Bhutan is divided into 4 groups. Those who enjoy sufficiency in less than half are considered unhappy. If it's half to 2/3, it's narrowly happy. 2/3 to 76% extensively, and above that, deeply happy. Next slide. So these gradients of happiness enable us to assess each person in terms of whether or not they have, next slide, the conditions of happiness. For example, this person at 84% is identified as deeply happy. The results of the index have many technical properties that we will not go into today, but could answer later on. But the national results, next slide, ask the question of who is happy enough in terms of public policy. Now observe that you don't have to have sufficiency in everything to be deeply or extensively happy. Only in 2/3 to permit diversity in how people experience and create their own agendas. So how many have that condition in 2015? Here we have to pause and influence and show that happiness is very personal. And in the Constitution, the aim is to create the conditions of happiness. That is the responsibility of government. Each person's responsibility is to go beyond that. But by the 2015 GNH index, 43.4% of the population are extensively or deeply happy. 47.9% are narrowly happy, and only 8.8% are unhappy. So that creates a gradient to understand how the distribution of sufficiency scores occurs across society. Next slide. The GNH index is at the individual level, and it covers people aged 16 to 95. So for example, men are happier than women, and we can see how. For example, their education attainments are higher, as are their governance. We can look at rural-urban areas and other groups by age to see how happiness varies across sectors of the population. Next slide. We can also, next slide, look across Bhutan's districts. The dark green are the happiest, and the light green have the lowest GNH scores. And it's interesting when we do this map, because actually the 3 poorest districts of Bhutan occur in the happiest, a middle, and a least happy Dzongkhag. So happiness and poverty are not walking in lockstep. They are different phenomenon when poverty is viewed only with health, education, and living standards. Next slide. Next slide. So how is the GNH Index policy relevant? In 2015, the GNH Index was compared back to the year 2010, and there was growth in GNH. We don't know how fast because there are not other countries that also measure GNH. Next slide. But overall, there was a statistically significant growth. Yet what is interesting in the Regeneration 2030 Summit is how that growth happened. For example, in the previous slide, we saw what increased. All the indicators of living standard increased. The services in governance increased. Cultural and healthy days increased. And that drove growth in GNH. But we also see here that all 4 indicators of psychological well-being actually went down statistically significantly. So did donations of time and money in the community or a sense of belonging. And so the GNH Index brings things together at the level of each person, creates profiles, and then analyzes what has gone up and what has gone down in a consistent way. And this is quite important for policy because it can start a conversation about trade-offs. And in a time of COVID, when mental health, when exercise, when relationships are much more visible in many countries outside Bhutan than they were before, and perhaps even exercises that are interior, like mindfulness, are of importance, then the GNH Index brings them into the same room. So we can see how to have a balanced assessment of well-being. Next slide. So the question for the Regeneration Summit is, where are such holistic conversations occurring in our own society, where it is not only that we are wanting a subjective answer to a happiness question, but we are wanting a balanced and holistic approach to well-being that consciously balances the economic, social, cultural, environmental, balances the 9 domains, and looks at the distribution of achievements in these 9 domains across different groups of the society at the individual level. Because of that, as Tshoki will present, the GNH Index can be used as a tool for policies and programs, as Karma Wangda will present in this summit, and also for the private sector, or for NGOs and civil society, or for other groups. So a question for the Regeneration Summit is how we can learn from the wisdom of GNH in thinking about the domains and the measures of well-being, and how those measures can spark a conversation about trade-offs between the different dimensions, and also how this summit could spark reflections on more balanced measures and assessments of happiness for public policy and for the business sector. Thank you so very much.
So just thank you, Sabina. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Just to continue on a little bit on how we are trying to integrate this GNH concept into the business model. Well, the idea was first proposed by our ex-Prime Minister, Dr. Sring Thopke. He mentioned that the current business model of overemphasizing on the profit maximization at the cost of environmental conservation and community well-being was very unsustainable. And by that, it essentially meant that measuring the success of a business by its ability to serve and facilitate and engage, instead of just looking from profit, returns, and stakeholder satisfaction. So what came about is back in 2017, Bhutan launched its GNA certification tool. Basically, Bhutan has now has a framework of to assess businesses based on a scoring method across these 9 domains that I mentioned earlier. The tool comprises of a stepwise method to assess businesses using a framework that scores workplace happiness, as well as organizational commitment in terms of investment and daily operations. So integrating this tool requires a dramatic shift in corporate business models and a reorientation of a profit-only model to a holistic model of business with purpose. And I'm happy to share, to inform the gathering that Davini's company based in Pema has been the first ever company showing interest in being certified. Well, with this, I again thank Sabina for her wonderful insights. And moving on, for the next speaker, we have Ms. Azusa Kubota, who is the resident representative of the UNDP country office in Bhutan. Prior to assuming the post of resident representative, she served as a country manager and head of office of UNDP and the UN Joint Presence Manager of UNDP, UNICEF, UNFPA, and the UN Women in Solomon Islands. She was also the deputy resident representative of UNDP Laos and the Maldives. She has worked with the UNDP Evaluation Office in New York, where she led country-level evaluations of UNDP's contributions in several countries, as well as global climatic evaluations. Ms. Kubota holds a master's degree in International Affairs and Economics and Political Development from the School of International and Public Affairs, Columbia University, New York, USA. May I now invite Ms. Azusa to present on the pathways adopted by Bhutan for a greener and a more resilient future.
Thank you so much, Tshoki. I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Good. As introduced by Tshoki, I've been residing in Bhutan since March 2019 as the head of UNDP. We in UNDP support national efforts led by the royal government and civil society partners in achieving the overall Agenda 2030. Addressing the challenges of climate change and environmental conservation is at the heart of our partnership with Bhutan. Today, I have been asked to share some examples of our support to greening the recovery pathways from the COVID-19 crisis. Before going to the case studies, for those of you who have not heard much about Bhutan, let me give you a quick background to the country and its efforts to conserve environment and combat the pandemic. So I just wanted to give a bit of background to the country. The 2008 constitution of the Kingdom Bhutan decrees that the country maintain minimum of 60% of the total land and the forest cover for all time. And it goes in saying in Article 5.1 of the Constitution that every Bhutanese is a trustee of the kingdoms of natural resources and environment. Currently, Bhutan has over 70% of the total area under forest cover, making the country one of the few carbon neutral nations around the world. The protected area network includes 5 national parks, 4 wildlife sanctuaries, 1 nature reserve, and 8 biological corridors, corresponding to over 50% of total land area. And Bhutan is home to over 11,000 species of flora and fauna, accounting to close to 1% of total biodiversity in the world, although the total land area occupied by Bhutan is only 0.03% of the world land area. So it really shows how rich Bhutan is in terms of biodiversity. Now let me come to the COVID-19 pandemic response. Since the onset of the pandemic, under the leadership of His Majesty, the royal government has taken very proactive measures, such as halting international tourism and closing down borders. And as a result, there has not been a widely spread community transmission. As a temporary visitor to Bhutan, I must say that I have been deeply impressed by the importance given to every life. And I believe this is a true sign of being a GNH nation. All measures and efforts put in place have been geared towards having zero death. And so far, indeed, no life has been lost to the pandemic. However, the economic and social impact has been felt deep and wide. The tourism impact study done in April, together with UNDP and National Statistics Bureau, only 1 month after the closure of the international tourism, revealed that the impact of this pandemic has been already felt, especially by vulnerable groups in the informal sector. About 50,000 people are engaged in the tourism sector, and 9,000 people have come back from Middle East, all looking for jobs, adding to 30,000 people already looking for a job before the pandemic. And youth unemployment was already pretty high, around 15% pre-COVID time, and pandemic has aggravated this situation. So this means that it is even more important to engage young people in the COVID recovery pathways and provide ways for them to be meaningfully engaged in economic and social activities. UNDP's response to the crisis is very much building on the understanding that every crisis comes with an opportunity to build back stronger, to build for better. There are systemic and underlying challenges that can be addressed using the opportunities created by the crisis, including the sense of urgency and inclination towards rapid solutions. Together with the Loden Foundation, which is a Thimphu-based civil society organization focusing on entrepreneurship development, we have launched calls for proposals for business development, supporting young people who wish to contribute to COVID-19 response, as well as climate action through their business ideas. I must say the notion of social entrepreneurship or social enterprise is deeply embedded in the hearts and minds of Bhutanese youth. We have so far engaged 10 young people engaged in green entrepreneurships, including 3 women. One such example is an idea called Vegetables on Wheels. This is a group of young people delivering vegetables directly from farmers to households. And this business proved to be very, very useful during the lockdown and has also contributed to reduction of wastage of vegetables. Another example is biodegradable plates that are made by a young woman in the southern district in the red zone using the fallen betel nut leaves. These plates have replaced the aluminum containers used in hotels designated as mandatory quarantine facilities, basically reducing the amount of waste. We also supported young farmers. It's very difficult to attract young people in the agriculture sector because of some of the stigma and the perception attached to the profession. During the lockdown period, food security has become a growing concern for the government. And many of the young farmers and agro-business youth have been engaged in drying food and so forth to contribute to the problem of food security. These initiatives have so far created jobs for 56 people. 56 sounds very little in a global scale, but in Bhutan, with the population of 300,000 plus people, in a way, the entire country can be a laboratory for experimentation, innovation with ripple impact. The culture of entrepreneurship is nascent in Bhutan, and attracting young people to the agriculture sector is very critical for the future economic development and sustainability of the nation. So these humble investments can make a difference in a country like Bhutan. Due to rapid urbanization, waste management has become a major challenge in the country. As part of our support to medical waste management from the quarantine facilities and hospitals, we're supporting the government to introduce low carbon emission and environmentally friendly disposal mechanisms through the private sector partnership, particularly engaging young entrepreneurs. Currently, 900 kilograms of waste is generated daily from flu clinics and quarantines. This initiative not only ensures safe and green waste management mechanisms, but also creates jobs in the country's young waste vendors. We are also promoting circular economy for waste management. For example, 50% of waste generated in the country is organic. And through a relatively simple technique, this can be turned into organic compost to promote country's organic farming. We have supported women groups and young entrepreneurs to turn waste into composting for income generation. The tourism sector is one of the hardest hit sectors by the pandemic. Since early March, there has been no international tourists visiting Bhutan. Using this downtime, the royal government has embarked on a number of initiatives to enlarge the offer pool in the sector by investing in ecotourism. Bhutan has been known for its exceptional cultural experiences, but the tourism package so far has not tapped fully into the country's rich environmental biodiversity. This initiative will support 10 sustainable ecotourism business products, youth-led entrepreneurs, domestic products, itineraries, creating jobs for over 17,000 people and 300 local enterprises. We are also working on the digitization of the Snowman Trek in the most beautiful parts of the country. Despite its stunning beauty, more people have visited Everest than the Snowman Trek, which spans from the country's far west to central region, over 300 kilometers. And truckers normally traverse this over the period of 25 to 26 days. It is considered as perhaps one of the most challenging treks in Bhutan. Through a partnership with the Tourism Council of Bhutan, we are collecting GPS coordinates, and this will be useful for the ultramarathon race called the Snowman Race route making, scheduled for October 2021. The object of this race is to raise awareness on climate change and required action. I'm sure many of you are following this race from far. We're also supporting the overall digital transformation of the tourism management. The COVID-19 crisis has taught us that digital disruption is the answer to many, and there are some examples of how Bhutan is using the crisis as an opportunity to make the sector greener by promoting paperless systems. Now I'd like to talk about the climate resilient agriculture for food security and sufficiency. Due to the closure of the borders with India, import of essential food items such as onions, tomatoes, cooking oil has been disrupted. In response to growing concerns of food security, especially ahead of the cold winter months, the government has been accelerating its efforts to increase vegetable production, post-harvest processing, and logistics across the country. Bhutan is faced with a number of challenges such as a lack of water, poor logistic networks across mountainous terrains. So through our climate resilient agriculture initiatives, we are front-loading initiatives to build over 400 kilometers of roads to be climate-proofed, build close to 40 climate resilient, reliable irrigation schemes for 8,000 hectares of farmland. We're also training farmers with climate-proof agriculture techniques and bring in technologies to increase crop yields by 30%. While Bhutan is carbon neutral, studies have revealed that progressive and bold investments in transportation sector in particular are necessary to maintain this status. In this respect, in the recent past, number of vehicles has been growing by 10% a year in the narrow valley of Thimphu. UNDP is working with the royal government to introduce 300 electric taxis by the end of next year, and the plans to introduce electric buses are also underway. The crisis also taught us the importance of having diversified energy source. As you may know, Bhutan has clean energy, largely thanks to hydropower. However, during the lockdown, the importance of diversifying energy source was felt in particular. And now we are working with the government to invest in a solar farm, which will be connected to the wind energy for the first time. In Bhutan, during the winter months, when the weather level is low, energy needs to be imported at a cost, although there's plenty of beautiful sunshine to generate solar energy. This investment in solar farm will soon be scaled up by other partners, and therefore is an important step in catalyzing the future investment and strengthening the energy security of the country, and therefore ensuring Bhutan's carbon neutrality status. Lastly, as you heard from Professor Sabina and my colleague Tshoki, GNH is a holistic development paradigm that goes much beyond SDGs. I say this as a UN official because it does have profound focus on wellness and health of body and mind, going beyond sustainable development indicators. As is the case with many countries around the world, the pandemic has affected mental health of many due to increasing job losses and cases of violence at home against women and children. UNDP is not only concerned about the health of our planet, but also the inner health of people in Bhutan. We have expanded our partnership with civil society organizations such as Respect, Educate, Nurture, and Empowerment Women, in short, RENEW, and the Bhutan Youth Development Fund. With the RENEW, we're working to reskill and upskill survivors of gender-based violence, Dryan workers displaced by the pandemic. Dryans are entertainment centers where some women can be extremely vulnerable, and people living with HIV/AIDS. We are also partnering with the Royal Academy of Performance Arts to professionalize art and performance skills of women from Dryan. Also, this is not just a vocational training program, as it has modules on awareness on rights and self and confidence strengthening. With YDF, we are working with youth who have just returned from Middle East, those having difficulty with substance use disorder. The 2-week program called GNH Journey, Walking the Path, is a holistic program which is designed for self-exploration through meditation, contemplative practice, yoga, games and sports, trekking, exercises, and exploring nature. This program would have over 400 direct and indirect beneficiaries. A survey recently completed by the World Economic Forum in 28 countries revealed that more than 80% of the respondents said they would like to see a different world post-COVID, which is more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable. Similarly, more than 60% of the respondents said that they would like to see a new self after COVID, suggesting a transformation at the personal level. We hope that the examples of some of our humble contributions to national efforts in Bhutan respond to these aspirations. I hope through my presentation you enjoyed a quick virtual journey to Bhutan, and you'll come Bhutan in person after some normalcy is gained in the international travel. I'm very sorry for the technical glitch because I had some beautiful images from Bhutan to transport you to the land of Thunder Dragon, but I'm sure you have a chance to visit in person. And thank you so much for your attention.
So to start with, I would like to greet to all the audiences a very Kuzuzambo. Kuzuzambo is a Buddhist way of greeting. And welcome to the Kingdom of Bhutan. Bhutan, as you know, I think the earlier speakers have already introduced that Bhutan is located to those people who have not, they have a very little limited knowledge about Bhutan and its location. Bhutan is located between the two giant countries. To the north, we have the Tibet Autonomous Region of China, and to the south, we have the very populous, the Indian states of West Bengal, Assam, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. So Bhutan is, if you look, is very small country located between the two giant countries. And climatically, if you look at the country, then we have in the north, we have this very, very dry Tibetan the country receives very low precipitation, and to the south we have Cherrapunji, the country at the place where it receives the heaviest rainfall. So now, if you look at the country, then we have very diverse climatic condition, and that contributes to the diverse ecosystem within a very small country that embedded between the two large countries. So with this now, Bhutan for Life is a legal entity established under the Royal Charter granted by His Majesty the 5th King of Bhutan on 27th July 2018. So giving us the opportunity and the legal opportunity to establish this institute to sustainably managed for now and for the future of our protected areas in the country, in Bhutan. As I think mentioned earlier by my colleagues, the GNH is one of the pillar is the environmental conservation. So in Bhutan, we follow the middle path. Even our development philosophy are guided by the middle path. And that I will just quote one of the popular saying of the middle path. As popularly saying in the Bhutanese context, it is better to have milk and cheese many times than beef just once. So it clearly shows that how people actually have that in their mindset to utilize the fragile and very limited resources on a sustainable basis. Bhutan has one of the biggest commitment to conservation. And our other speaker mentioned that the constitution of Bhutan mandated to keep 60% of the forest cover to all time to come. It has the highest forest proportion of forest cover in Asia. And it's one of the world's 10 most diverse regions in the world, and has the conservation legacy of the monarchs. As again, we have a very strong commitment from the highest authority, and now we are happy to say that more than 70% of the total land area of Bhutan is under the forest cover. And major milestones in 1993 is the declaration of comprehensive network of protected areas in the country. We go to next slide. Next slide, please. And this is the Bhutan's protected area network systems. We have parks, wildlife sanctuaries, stick nature reserves, and these are being connected by the biological corridors. So for example, this corridor helps the species to move from one to the other. For example, in the south, we have the Bengal tiger, about 100 meters in the southern foothills, and that same tiger can be observed about 4,000 meters. So this is how our protected area network system works in the country. And to ensure the sustainability of these protected areas in the country, we have a Bhutan for Life to ensure the conservation, not affecting the livelihood of the communities living within the protected areas. We have a total of 51.32% of the total land area under the protected area systems. Next, please. Next slide. Can click on more, and protected areas, of course, provides a lot of services to the communities in the lab. Can you go a bit far earlier? Yes, no. So I think these are something that we achieve from the as a benefit from the protected areas: the clean and regulated water, domestic agriculture, hydro power, agriculture, ecological needs, carbon sequestration, as mentioned. I think we have this one of the two countries in the world with the carbon negative. And carbon sequestration, avoided emission, enhanced resilience against impacts of climate change, diversified economic base through nature-based tourism and enterprises, non-resource products, cultural benefits, and biodiversity. So this serves a very important role, especially when we talk about the Himalayas. Is very fragile, and now, of course, we are also not totally protected from all these challenges. We have the natural, man-made challenges. For example, we have the habitat loss and land degradation, climate change, and these are some of the examples that we face. Can go to next. Next slide, please. And of course, the challenges we face, the local communities also face the human-wildlife conflict, inadequate institutional capacity and resources. We in the protected areas, we have the human resources, yet the capacities need to be built up. And rapid demographic changes with the development and decreasing development assistance as we graduate from the LDC to mid-income level, and a lot of donor will be withdrawn. So with this, we need the innovative ideas, innovative ways to generate our own fund financing mechanism to support the protected area, especially the conservation sectors. Next, please. And this is a conceptual model for the Bhutan for life. In the conservation areas, we have a lot of factors. For example, the social factors impacting on the nature, the economic factors, political factors, climatic factors. These are some factors that affects the protected area network systems. And similarly, with these factors, we have the results such as the loss of endangered species, habitat loss, land degradation, natural disasters, reduced human well-being. Of course, these are not to that extent, but we are being very careful that to look at those problems and external factors to be kept at a very minimal scale. So this is where Bhutan for Life come into to help and mitigate the existing factors, though at a very minimal stage, but yet Bhutan for Life is there to ensure that the parks are being sustained for now and for future, for the conservation sectors as well as for the livelihood of the local communities living within these protected area network systems. Next, please. And what makes Bhutan for Life unique? Bhutan for Life is a project finance for permanence. Around the globe, there are 3 PFP, project finance for permanence. In North America, the Great Bear, in Costa Rica, Forever Costa Rica, and then in Brazil, ARPA. But in the whole of the Asian, Bhutan for Life is the first project for finance permanence, first in Asia. And this is where Bhutan need to work hard to showcase that the such project finance for permanence type of project works in this part of the world, and it needs to be replicated some parts of within this region. So we are into implementation now in the almost end of the second year of Bhutan for Life since implementation in 2018. Next, please. Next, please. What makes BFL unique? While instituting the Bhutan for Life, we did extensive multi-stakeholder consultation and representation, and particularly bottom-up approach. So from the grassroots level, very impressive conservation plans with equal emphasis given on the social and ecological benefits. Next, please. Can click, and then the themes, milestones, contribute to these Sustainable Development Goals, IG biodiversity targets, national biodiversity and strategy targets, and INDCs. Conservation milestones are more holistic: biodiversity, ecosystem services, institutional, economic, and climate change resilience. So there are a lot of enabling conditions for the Bhutan for Life. For example, we have the strong political stability, leadership, deeply committed to conservation, and an economy directly benefiting from ecosystem services. So Bhutan for Life, we raised about 43 million USD from multi-party donors. And then at the heart of the deal, we have this conservation plan and financial plan. And then the Royal Government of Bhutan contributed as a matching fund. And that makes 118 million US dollar for the 14-year project period. And at the end of the project period, the parks are to be managed sustainably by itself. So as we exit at the 14th year, the parks need to be take lead and need to sustain by themselves through various ways of innovative ideas. One is from the hydropower project, the ploughback system.
Sorry for cutting in. Maybe if Doctor, you could wrap up in 30 seconds. Thank you. Sorry.
Sure. So finally, this the innovative ways to generate the revenue internally is one is the green tax, other is from the hydropower, ecotourism, and the tax from the mining.
Thank you, Doctor, so much. And as mentioned earlier, all the slides will be available either on the GRIP platform or from the organizers, the email for which are available on the website, on the Regeneration 2030 website. Just now, before we close, I'll just have maybe we'll extend it to 10 more minutes because we started late. I'll straight away go to the question. And the first question is for Sabina. Why do you think other countries haven't launched GNH indices like Bhutan? After COVID-19, is there a chance that others might do so? Please kindly make the answers brief. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tshoki, and thank you all participants. I really look forward to an interchange and an ongoing conversation. I think initially that governments in the other regions of the world wanted to have a large dashboard of indicators or only to measure subjective well-being. But I think that now, with many governments making well-being surveys where all the questions for the same person are available, and where there is a demand not to have a ginormous wheel, as the UK earlier had, or a 43-panel dashboard, as we now have, but rather to have an index where you can see, did well-being go up or did it go down overall? And you can see then what groups are happier than others and in what domains of their life. I think having that information collected in a policy-friendly way that can be disaggregated and analyzed by indicators, and so that can also shape policy responses, is very important. And in Bhutan, as I believe Karma Wangda will present in the 12th plan, the elements of the GNH Index are already in the 5-year plan for the country. And there are policy and program screening tools that he will introduce. So it seems that there may also be a demand now in other countries to have innovative metrics introduced in a way that is easy and informative in terms of policy inputs. And so the hope is that some of the richer surveys will be used for that. And indeed, we're doing a trial measure with the Understanding Society in the UK on such a multidimensional well-being index at present as an academic exercise. So it's not a perfect measure. No measure is perfect. But I think trying to have a way of creating a holistic and balanced but high-profile indicator that has political importance is perhaps of interest now in countries beyond Bhutan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you so much for a very well thought out answer. Again, we're running out, so I'll just jump straight to the question. My next question is directed to Azusa. I've actually received two. The first is COVID-19 has led to kind of a steep rise in poverty in all its dimensions, but it has also introduced new dimensions like mental and emotional health, relationships, meaningful work, mindfulness, and so on. So how do you think, since you have such a wealth of experience, how do you think the youth agency, the UN agency should respond to both, to addressing both the disadvantages, yes, but also in cultivating wider aspects of GNH that are not usually considered part of economic development? That's the first. And the second is, which one action would you recommend to the governments when thinking about a green COVID recovery? Thank you, Azusa. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Tshoki. On the first question, I try to be very brief. The two examples I have shared in my presentation, maybe you can show the last slide for the colleagues who haven't seen the pictures. We're working with Renew and YDF, two civil society organizations on resilience, personal resilience. COVID-19 crisis has taught all of us that the world is ambiguous, uncertain, and fast changing. In order to cope with uncertain VUCA world, we have to have the inner resilience. We have to invest in, I would say, software of a human being, not only the hardware of the infrastructure, systems, and policies in order to have resilient economy and society. So recognizing this, we have started investing in partnership with these two civil society organizations to look at mental health, personal resilience, and mindfulness. These two partnerships would result in entrepreneurship opportunities together with Loden Foundation. So the graduates of these programs would try to start social entrepreneurships with understanding that sound mind is very much important, needed for sound businesses and successful businesses. So this is a very new type of partnership that we are investing in with civil society organizations. Before the COVID, we never had such a comprehensive program which invests in the personal resilience, mental health, and the business opportunities such as business proposal, development training, and access to financing and so forth. Thank you. I can't hear you.
Thank you so much, Azusa. Thank you for the wonderful thoughts. Again, instead of summarizing, I'm going straight to the last question that is directed to Dr. Pema Wangda. Given the experiences of leading this massive project, how replicable is this initiative in other countries, and are there any unforeseen challenges? Over to you, Dr. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And there are a lot of challenges and opportunities as well. And one of the challenges that we face is because since the project finance for Permanence is a multi-donor project, so we have multiple donors requiring different types of requirements. So that aligning and meeting the requirement is one challenge, but as we are in the second year of the implementation and we are doing pretty good meeting with all these donors, and we were able to overcome all the challenges that we are facing. And it is too early to say that, I mean, we are still having some issues that need to be solved, but I think it's pretty very simple, straightforward, and that can be achieved very soon. And to replicate, I'm definitely sure that that can be replicated in the, especially in the part of this side of the world, in the Asian part. I think Bhutan for Life is project finance for Permanence, and there are a lot of the experiences that we can share with the other countries in this part of the region, and especially now protecting and preserving and conserving the nature becomes one of the global importance, and sustainably utilizing the resources, not setting aside the local communities, taking the local communities into consideration. I think we learned quite a lot of the experiences within the short span of time, especially involving the local communities, how best the resources, the limited resources, can be utilized by building up their capacities, by teaching and training the local communities in enterprise development and so on, and also to innovatively looking into sustainably managing the resources. For example, as I said earlier, the green tax and some portion of the tax that comes from the mining sectors, from the hydropower. So these are some opportunities that we can foresee and to mainstream those into the policy. And I'm pretty sure that in the years to come, we have a lot to share with many of our neighboring countries. And I hope that this will become a success, as we have the highest blessing. So I'm sure we can have a lot of success stories in the years to come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. With this, we have come to the end of the session. Azusa, again, sincere apologies for facing the technical glitches. But again, I'm going to be telling, I just want to inform those tuning in that all the PowerPoint will be available on the GRIP platform or with the organizers, the email for which is available on the website Regeneration 2030. I'd like to personally thank all the speakers for their time and for inspiring others on GNH, and more importantly, in clarifying that a GNH pathway is possible. And to those who are watching this, thank you for tuning in and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Thank you very much.